thank you all for being here. More importantly, thank you all for everything you are doing on this issue of eliminating homelessness. It is the great moral issue of our day.
4.5 years ago, the city and county housed over 30,000 people. The number of homeless individuals at that time, and yet today, 4.5 years later, we're facing a 40% increase. So unless we truly address how we are going to prevent homelessness, there's no way we would ever be able to end homelessness. Thank you.
Okay, I think you can't have too many good mornings, so good morning again. All right. My name is Margot Pensaval. I'm here from the Rossier School of Education. I am going to talk a little bit about a program that's a little different from what you've heard this morning. This is a partnership between two elementary schools in the USC neighborhood and the Rossier School of Education. We are working with the two principals, Dr. Shelby Sims and Alita Taylor, and my partner, Layla Hassan, and myself from the School of Education are carrying out a project called Parents for Parents, or Parents Helping Parents. We are supported by our dean, Karen Sims Gallagher, who I think you can definitely say she's in. Okay. The goals of the project may sound small, but we're just starting out. We have a very small number of parents. Good. We have a very small number of parents and students who we're working with, but the message has been consistent. The goal started out with helping parents identify and problem solve educational issues that might be compounded by being in unstable or transitional housing. We also want to look at the way that parents and teachers see the children in the families we're looking at. We want to observe the children's abilities to advocate for themselves and communicate and their levels of resilience. And we want to evaluate the need of a potentially new curriculum that would help with communication and build these kinds of behaviors. The structure of the program is that we have almost completed 2 6-week cycles of meeting at the schools with the parents in focus groups. Our first school, we had 9 parents representing 10 children. In our second group, we had 21 parents, which is now increased to 23. So I think you can say that the parents are interested, they want to participate, and there definitely is a need. The second phase, which we haven't started yet, will be looking at the children's academic and social emotional behaviors, and we will talk to the parents about them and have them describe their children, and then independently the teachers will describe their children. So we'll look at how the students are perceived from multiple perspectives. The third phase is going to be that we are going to provide students with problem-solving vignettes. We're looking at how students problem solve, how they advocate, how they communicate, and how they respond to problematic situations. So we're hoping from these 3 phases we'll get a really good view of what it is to be, a young child in an elementary school that is dealing with the additional traumas or challenges of having been homeless or being homeless right now. Excuse me. Okay. We have some very preliminary findings, but the findings that we think are very important. As for all parents, communication is hard. And communication parent to parent is hard, and communication with children is hard. So that was one thing that popped up. Parents don't feel that their children are able to take the initiative and advocate for themselves, and sometimes they feel like they don't know how to model that for their kids, and they really want to learn. You know, our parents in our groups worry about the same things we worry about with our students, our children and students, and you know, they have helped each other so amazingly. They come up with solutions, they offer to help each other, so it's been a really encouraging experience listening to the parents speak. Many of the parents shared that they had been physically abused or sexually molested as young children or teenagers, and they're worried about that for their own children. The parents wonder how much of the acting out in schools, how much of the behavior problems are a result of their children not having the words to be able to express their thoughts and feelings. And then finally, the parents have shared with us that having gone to the groups, and let me just tell you, this is an hour to an hour and a half a week for just 6 weeks, has made such a difference in their lives. My colleague Layla Hassan met one of the parents at the Crenshaw Mall, and she said how much she missed coming. So such a short period of time, we think has begin to make such an impact, and this is something kind of we all may take for granted. So they're feeling less as isolated. The parents are all worried about their children's safety. They're worried about how much anger they carry, and they're worried about, you know, where does the fight come from? And this is something we watch, we observe, and we talk about. So is this particular to families in transition? We don't know. But we do know that the added challenges and the added stress that are placed upon some of the families we talk to may cause their students to retreat, act out, or not feeling worthy of what they feel they need. Okay? It's very hard for little kids to speak up and say, hey, no, I need this, or I need you to help me, or I have a question. So those are some of the things we're looking at. Some of the other things we learned from this small group of students is that sometimes families don't expect the schools to work for them. Okay, so some of our Latina participants said that they acquiesce to the teachers and they trust that the teachers are always going to do the best things for their students. Some of our African American families said that when problems come up, they often don't know what to do, and rather than go to the teacher, the principal, or whomever they can get from help, they take it into their own hands. Our questions are around whether teaching students to communicate and advocate for themselves will help the students become less vulnerable. You know, we see other schools, we see other places where students are taught and given practice. It's part of the curriculum. We always feel that in a lot of some of the schools that we work in at Rossier that there's so much to teach the students and we're always playing catch up that this gets pushed aside and it's all academics, which academics are very important, but so is self-expression, so is self-advocacy, and so is communication. How can we help the students build agency and learn resolution? Many of the families felt that their children were afraid to ask questions since they don't want to make things worse when things are stressful already. Okay, I can see that my time is up. I will go very quickly. So we're working with 2 schools. Major changes have happened with these schools. One is becoming a KA magnet, where they're going to make some changes in the curriculum to institute some of these, and we're going to keep watching it and talking about it and listening to parents. In our second school, we have a significant group of grandparents who have custody of their children because the parents of the children have lost their children due to housing instability and other lifestyle choices. So there's a lot going on. I need to finish, but I will say that this is just the beginning for us. We're trying to help families work with each other, become empowered, and help the kids become more resilient, communicative, and advocate for each other so they can go on and be stronger members and productive kids in our schools. Okay?
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Spiegel with Inner City Law Center. I'm a lawyer type. And I'm here to tell you about a new program that we're very excited about, Lawyers Preventing and Ending Homelessness. And we're trying to prevent people who are in housing from becoming homeless in the first place, right? The inflow problem. And this is very exciting for us because it is breaking us out of silos that have existed for way too long from service providers, but really legal services. We're very guilty of this, that we just do legal services. We don't sufficiently partner with social service providers who provide other kinds of services or housing services. We just do our thing. And so we kind of isolate ourselves out of collaboration, but then we isolate ourselves substantively as well. You come into us, you have an eviction problem, we'll stop your eviction. You also have a government benefits problem, you have a criminal record you need expunged, you have a credit problem. Sorry, we only do one thing at a time, or we do 3 things, you'll have to go somewhere else. So all this kind of put the burden on the people in need to find everything they need and go all over the place to all kinds of different providers. That has not worked, it will not work. And what we need to do is whatever it takes, right? And so that's what this is a model of. It's not just doing 1 or 2 or 3 things and not doing it alone. So we're partnering with social service providers like the People's Concern or PATH and many others throughout the coordinated entry system. We are putting lawyers at the service of those groups. Lawyers, I think part of our problems about collaboration is we know it all, right? But of course we don't. So really trying to do this in a way is where we listen and we try to figure out how we can help those case managers do whatever it takes to get that person, to keep them in housing. So it's working in collaboration, and there's rent subsidies as well. This is so important, right? When people are living right on the margin, they're spending more than 50% of their income on rent. Anything that happens could put them out. A rent subsidy, short-term rent subsidies, will allow us to negotiate with landlords and keep people in place. And the list of legal services we'll provide is whatever they need. So eviction prevention, landlord dispute resolution, subsidized housing access, government benefits, reasonable accommodations, workers' compensation, unemployment benefits, clearing financial debt, minor immigration issues, professional licenses and identification, expungement of criminal records, and whatever else we need to do. And the approach needs to very much be a housing-first approach, get and keep people in housing, harm reduction, meaning meet people where they're at. There's no condition of eligibility based on being clean or taking your meds or anything like that. We want to use trauma-informed care. Poor people in LA County experience trauma because of the way we operate our county, and we need to be aware of what they come in with and be respectful of that. We're targeting people who, before they get evicted, before they get the eviction notice, so that we can actually make a difference. And we have lots of great partners in the legal services world. Legal Aid Foundation Los Angeles, Neighborhood Legal Services, Bethzetic, Public Counsel, Disability Rights California, and the LA LGBT Center. And now I just want to take a couple minutes to talk about challenges, which we were asked to do. And so I thought a lot about this. And the challenge, I think, is that we Angelenos act as if the problem is something with the individual who's at risk or becoming homeless, that they've got some kind of defect in them that we need to fix. Therefore, our solutions are things like, well, we need to expunge their criminal records because they did something wrong and got in prison, and we need to clear that up so they can get a fresh start. Or they're being evicted because whatever they did, they didn't make enough money, earn enough money to pay rent. Or they have bad credit because they overspent. So the remedies are all kind of designed to fix them. But this is not accurate. The problem is us Angelenos. The things we are trying to fix are principally the result of policy choices we have made over decades. Tax policies, criminal law policies, labor policies, education policies, housing and land use policies, all that have concentrated wealth and power in fewer and fewer hands, that it makes today's homelessness crisis not only understandable, but predictable. It's federal policies, but it ain't just federal policies. It's at the state level where we choose lower car registration fees and property taxes instead of smaller classrooms and better schools. The local level, we choose land use and housing policies. We protect the character of single-family neighborhoods over multifamily housing and housing that's affordable to poor people. And we make individual and institutional choices that are in our own self-interest but have consequences for other people, and we are seeing those consequences right now. These and countless policy choices make the mistakes that people make to get into homelessness inevitable. They are inevitable because there is no safety net if something goes wrong. And in all of our lives, something inevitably goes wrong. 57,000 homeless people, 40% African Americans. How can this happen? The question isn't how this can happen, but why it doesn't happen more often. And the answer to that question is that it will get worse, much worse, unless we change what we're seeing. It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's over 500,000 households in LA that earn less than $40,000 per year and pay more than 50% of their income on rent. And we are short 570,000 units of housing for those people. This is the tip of the iceberg. It will get worse unless we in this room change. It's not about the people who are on the street. Thank you.
Hi, folks. My name is Corinne Buchanan. I got some friends in the room. My name is Corinne Buchanan, and I serve as the Deputy Director for the Office of Diversion and Reentry, which is a division of the Department of Health Services. So shout out to DHS. We have a couple of DHS folks in the room, too. So very happy to be here this morning, and I thought what I would do is I'll just give you a bit of an update on what we're up to at the Office of Diversion and Reentry, and then I hope to leave you with a sense of why we believe that permanent supportive housing is so important to the work that we're trying to do. And I imagine I'm probably preaching to the choir, but we'll move forward with that. All right, so the Office of Diversion and Reentry is actually a relatively new division within the Department of Health Services. We launched in 2015. We were created by the Board of Supervisors with the express purpose of diverting people who have a mental health or substance use disorder away from the criminal justice system and into community-based treatment where we think those people are much more likely to become well. And we also do this work using permanent supportive housing. When the Board of Supervisors created our office, they set aside 40% of our funds specifically for permanent supportive housing because they believed that any diversion effort who really cares about our most vulnerable homeless individuals who are in our jail, in and out of our jail system, would have to include supportive housing to make that goal a reality. We now have a goal of providing permanent supportive housing to 2,500 individuals over the next 5 years. I will tell you, when we started, we had a goal of 1,000, but the demand for our program was so overwhelming that we increased that goal. We've increased that goal now a couple of times, and we're up to 2,500. So why housing? Why is supportive housing important to this work to divert people away from the justice system and to get that jail census, the number of people who are homeless in our jail and who have a mental illness or a substance use disorder, down? We know that at least 20% of people in our jail are people who are experiencing homelessness, and we actually expect we believe that number is probably an underrepresentation of the true number of people who either are housing unstable or literally homeless in our jails. Right now, over a quarter of the individuals who are in our LA County jail system have a mental illness. So on any given day in LA County, there are around 17,000 people who are in our jails, and the numbers are actually increasing. The latest look at the numbers was around 5,000 individuals in our jail who had a mental illness. We know that housing is really key to helping people to actually get connected to treatment and to maintain that treatment. And of course, we know that there's an incredible crisis right now across LA County to end homelessness, and we think this is an important part of the puzzle, is serving people who are currently in custody. How did we get here? So we have really been building off of the work that you heard about this morning when Cherie Todoroff described housing for health. You were using the flexible housing subsidy pool, which is a locally funded rental subsidy program to help us end homelessness for people across the county. Our work was also in many ways informed and championed by our own DA, Jackie Lacey. Shout out to our amazing district attorney here in LA County, who really took on mental health diversion as a key priority for her time in office. And then, of course, the Board of Supervisors creating our office and really putting permanent supportive housing at the fore. And then, of course, we're also bolstered by the work under Measure H and our whole person care waiver, which is a Medicaid waiver that we use that supports a lot of the work that we're doing at the Department of Health Services to end homelessness. So how it works, we're identifying people who are currently in custody, who are homeless, who have a mental health or substance use disorder, and who are in our jail system. We then connect them to a provider who sees them in jail. We then are able to take those individuals, the people who are not yet sentenced, and bring them to a very specialized courtroom that we operate in collaboration with the Superior Court, where we are actually able to divert people who would otherwise, if not for our program, maybe facing a state prison sentence, and we can instead connect them to the care they really need in the community through our housing initiative. And then we connect people immediately upon release. We go pick up folks at jail. We don't let them sort of try to come to us. We go to jail, connect people immediately to interim housing that's operated by the Department of Health Services Housing for Health Division, and then eventually work on a permanent supportive housing plan for every single person who we serve. I mentioned this before, but really a key part of our work was access to this flexible housing subsidy pool. Having a local rental subsidy was really key in being able to make sure that we could provide housing to this population. For folks who don't know it, the flexible housing subsidy pool is operated by our partner Brilliant Corners across Los Angeles County. So in addition to our main ODR housing program, we also run a couple of other programs that serve homeless individuals. We run a law enforcement assisted diversion program, which is a program where we can catch people before they even get into jail. We, in collaboration with Housing for Health, operate a rapid rehousing program, which serves people who are on probation. And we have a variety of other programs, including the Sobering Center, which I think you heard about this morning from the mayor. We've got a whole lot going to try to, at some point along the path of someone that someone might follow that would then land them in custody, how can we have interventions at each of those moments when that contact might happen so that we can change the arc of someone's life. So this is just a little photo of our small but scrappy team over at the Office of Diversion and Reentry that's working every day to help us make this work happen. I'll end by just saying that since our program launched in 2015, we have now removed over 1,700 individuals from the jail and gotten them connected to permanent supportive housing. So we're on our way.
So my name is Roseanne Mulligan, and I'm so happy to be here to represent the Herman Oster School of Dentistry and what we're doing to prevent homelessness. And you might wonder, oh, dentistry and prevention, isn't that just about fluoride and that kind of thing? Well, there's actually more to it than that. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing. We have quite a number of programs already taking care of or trying to help treat the homeless, and our strategy is to promote these programs on a level that is at the micro level of the individual all the way to the macro level in the community. And let me tell you that all of the programs, we now have 7 different programs, didn't just happen overnight. We've actually been in Skid Row since 1994. But you can see, if you look at this timeline, there's lots more things happening as we come closer because, of course, we find the need much, much greater as well in terms of oral health. Well, yes, we've done research. We've looked at, if you look at the blue bars, this is various disease indicators for oral health, and you see the disease is not just double, it's more like triple and quadruple what it is in the general population. So we know that there's a huge need, and probably our biggest issue when it comes to research is the mobility of the homeless population and our ability to find them at a later time. The homeless definitely know they need better oral health. One of our research projects is a qualitative project where individuals tell us, who we've treated, tell us about their needs. And this happens to be an unsolicited letter from a homeless individual who said he was pretty desperate. He was in pain. He had no money. He was on the streets. He found our clinic. And he speaks on behalf of other homeless as well when he says that, you know, he couldn't eat. He was ashamed to even talk to anyone because he felt so badly about his situation. But he found our clinics, and he was engaged in the clinics, and that actually, this was actually a 2-page letter that he wrote, how the treatment took a long time. He had a lot of work to be done. And he's writing this letter to us after he's moved out of Skid Row, and he is out being a productive member of society. And what he says is, you know, it's a year later. I can smile, I can chew, I can talk, I can present myself. That's what you, as friends, did for me. So he sees the practitioners as his friends. The homeless in general know that poor oral health impacts them locally in their mouths as well as systemically in their other organs, and they want care. So there's primary prevention of getting people back to health and then keeping them from disease, but there's secondary prevention too. For example, the family member, the parent who's on the street because of drug use. And as they come off that drug use, then they are in their rehab programs, but they begin to feel pain in their mouths. And then they fall off of the wagon because the pain is so great. And then they're kicked out of their rehab program because they fell off the wagon. And so if we in our clinics can prevent that sort of vicious cycle, then we have, in a way, prevented homelessness with a secondary prevention model. And so as we look at the strategies that we contribute to in reducing or ending homelessness, there are a number of secondary preventions that flow from the work we do. It wasn't recently, we did a study impact that shows the impact of children with toothaches. These are underserved, underprivileged children in the schools. If they've had a toothache in the last six months, we've definitely showed that they are 4 times more likely, that's 4 times more likely to be in the bottom half of their class. And we know that children that don't do well, frequently that's a precursor to homelessness. And knowing all this, one of the things that we've done is partner with USC, and build a pediatric dental clinic for high-risk and foster children at the county medical center. So that, because again, foster children, high risk for homeless. So if we can make their oral health better, we know that that's going to be a factor as well. So we are treating adults and children at all ages. This happens to be one of our homeless individuals who wanted to provide testimony to the work and how important oral health is. And what she said was, you can give me a haircut, you can give me a new resume, you can give me a new suit, but without my smile, I wasn't going to go look for a job. And there she is. And here's another individual. He said, I didn't want to be in public. I didn't want to be seen. But my self-esteem, my self-worth was restored when I got health back to my mouth. And you all did that. And so even the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission, where we have one of our freestanding clinics, said that the best mental health clinic is the dental clinic. So it's a secondary benefit of, or secondary prevention model of preventing homelessness. Yes, we have unique aspects to our program. We are down in Skid Row and in other places where we know the homeless are. But we're not just in our clinics waiting for them to come to us. We are out in the field every day. Our promotors, our hygienists, our dental assistants, our dentists, finding, screening, and referring and helping people get into care. And that includes the social work, and I want to be sure and give a shout out to the School of Social Work, because we've been collaborating with the social work interns who help us reach these people and help us provide referrals to them for other sources. What are the challenges? Well, there are several. I've grouped them as the instability of funding, because as you may know, dentistry is often very down, very far in the list of what will be funded with government insurance and foundations. The limited service network. Very often, people who are practicing in dentistry now, they don't really know how to approach homeless individuals. They've never had that opportunity, and we're changing that. And finally, the patient resource issues, if they don't have the transportation or the child support to get in. So those are just some of the opportunities and challenges that we face. But we see our mission as serving the homeless so that in a primary and a secondary prevention way, we can help reduce homelessness, and training the providers of tomorrow to be willing and able and comfortable to see homeless people as just like you and me. And that's exactly what our goal is, to further impact the oral health needs of the homeless population.
Thank you. Thank each of you. We have 5 minutes for questions, and I'd like to start out with one, because I think that Greg opened that discussion, and I think it would be helpful for us all to think about it. And that is, what are the useful ways to think about homelessness prevention that should be part of our conversation? Elise Buick talked about the Everyone In campaign, and one of those 3 goals was to change the narrative and how we think about our homeless neighbors and friends. And I would like to ask the panel who would like to start?
We'll start.
Thank you.
There's a mic on.
Leveler. Well, I think that a lot of people have talked today about helping people get back on their feet. I think one of our goals through our project is that helping kids not fall off their feet and build them from the beginning and give them, help through curricular and learning in public schools, add things to the curriculum that will give them confidence, help them to advocate for themselves and communicate well, so, they can move forward and be successful in school and post-graduation.
Yeah, we know that in our world of diversion, we know that incarceration is a deeply destabilizing event in someone's lives. So much of our work is what we call at the early intercept sort of phase. So if we can keep people from ever being incarcerated, they're much more likely to be able to maintain their housing if they do have housing, and to not have interruptions in their employment. So much of our work is really focused on keeping people from entering the justice system at all, and in hopes of long-term housing stability and other forms of stability in their lives.
Well, and I'd like to say that we've redirected so much of our efforts and energy with our field work to be out into the schools to try and get children the care to keep them healthy. And in the last 6 years, we've actually reached 60,000 children in the local schools, getting them into oral health care with the community agencies and community clinics that are most available to them. So again, an attempt to reduce the poor school performance aspect of pain when you're sitting in a classroom.
And I guess summarizing, it seems like all the institutions that we have are creating negative outcomes, and we have to go upstream and look at those institutions and really question how they're structured and who they're serving, and really be willing to fix them and change them if we want different outcomes.
Thank you. Do you have time for one more? One of the questions that we received by text is, how important is changing eviction laws to increase housing availability? And we'll start with the obvious.
I am obvious. So evictions are going to preventing evictions is going to keep somebody in their current housing, which is important and good, especially for rent-controlled units, where the rent doesn't go out until there's a vacancy. So somebody who's been in a unit for a long time, that rent is significantly below market. If they lose that unit, they're not going to be able to afford housing elsewhere. So we need to preserve that unit with eviction prevention and other means. But that's not going to address the supply of housing, right? That's a different issue. A supply, and principally we're considered here affordable housing, because what we know is we have enough luxury housing, we have enough market rate housing. That's the only housing we're producing above our need. We have a surplus of that. We are 560,000 units short of housing for people 40,000 and below. That's a choice we are making, and we have to make different choices to open up those things. So I would say things like rent control would expand the amount of affordable units we could have, as well as funding for new construction and reducing red tape around constructing affordable housing and supportive housing.
I'll just say that addressing potential evictions in permanent supportive housing is also an area that we need to focus on, and it's something that the Department of Health Services has invested resources in. So we work with our service provider partners, and in many cases with Brilliant Corners, an important rental subsidy provider in LA County, to be able to do mediation with landlords if there is a potential eviction, to try to solve that issue so that our clients aren't again experiencing a deeply unstable scenario. So we really appreciate the partnership of our service providers, who day in and day out work with landlords to preserve housing for our clients who are already in permanent supportive housing.
Thank you. And on behalf of Prevention and Action, thank each of you for your attention and your time.